Alright guys, we are back with some more MX vs ATV Legends. Today we are going to check out my least favorite tracks in the game. Now before we do that, I do want to show you what, in my opinion, are the worst tracks in the game. And the reason we do it this way is because I think the straight rhythm tracks are the worst in the game. They're just not very fun to play. They don't have a great rhythm to them. I mean, you can hit a decent rhythm on them, but they just aren't that fun to play. They have doubles and triples that you have so much speed, even if you scrub them, you're just like jumping out to flat. So, and the whoops, you generally have a ton of speed for the whoop sections on the straight rhythm. And when you hit them, you start to bounce a bit, right? The way the physics are, the whoop sections just don't feel like they're in a good spot. But that's my opinion. If the straight rhythm racing are your favorite tracks in the game, let me know in the comments. And whatever, it's fine. But in my opinion, the straight rhythm it just isn't fun. Just isn't that fun. I feel like it needs to be reworked or remade or whatever. Yeah, I mean, we probably don't hit the best rhythms. I don't really play them that much, but the bit I do, there's like 4 rhythm tracks in the game. They just aren't that fun. And the second worst tracks in the game, in my opinion, would be the trails. Now, the trails can be kind of fun. They show off the environments really well. They have fun parts on them. There'll be parts of the trail that get really tight, go into the mountains or go into a cave or, whatever. But, yeah, there's a few parts about it, but they just kind of feel like you're riding around on a road. They're really wide. There isn't much to do besides hold the throttle wide open. It's really easy, kind of mindless racing. I mean, they can be cool. They have cool sections on them, but for the most part, they're really simple, and there just isn't too much to them. I wish the majority of the trails were more like the parts that get really narrow and scale up a mountain or a hill or whatever. Not so much of this really wide, like I said, riding around on a road. But that's just my opinion. Let me know in the comments what you guys think, and we'll go from there. But let's jump into the video with my least favorite tracks. Okay, so to start this off, we have 2 Supercross tracks and 2 Motocross tracks. We're going to start with Supercross. We are using the 254 stroke because why not? We never use it, and I don't know, I just kind of felt like using it today in first person. Feel like it's the best camera angle in the game. So, this was pretty tough. This is Minneapolis, and it probably is my least favorite Supercross track. It's a good Supercross track, it really is. I like well, not even pretty much, I do enjoy all the Supercross tracks in this game. They're all fun, they all have line choice, they all feel pretty flowy. I like the Supercross tracks, so this was very difficult for me to put this list together. So the reason Minneapolis is my least favorite Supercross track is, 1, it is pretty easy. I mean, there are other easy tracks in the game. Anaheim is pretty easy, but Anaheim, for example, has some pretty tough lines you can go for that do make it kind of a difficult track if you are trying to hit those lines. So yeah, this track, it does have multiple lines you can take, but for the most part, I feel like the way we hit it is probably the consistent, the line that I would be going for in multiplayer. It isn't that if this track comes up in the playlist for multiplayer or career or whatever, I dread playing it. No, that isn't the case. It's a fun track. If it's your favorite track, I completely see why that might be. Again, I enjoy all the Supercross tracks in this game. They're all fun, they all feel pretty unique, and the rhythms are pretty fun to take. And the Supercross triples, for the most part, aren't as easy to overjump as they were in All Out. But yeah, that was Minneapolis, my least favorite Supercross track, and this is Arlington. same way. If it's your favorite track, I completely see why. But this is the same reasons I have Minneapolis as my least favorite is the reason why I have Arlington as my second least favorite Supercross track. It is a pretty easy track, pretty short track. I mean, all the Supercross tracks are pretty short, but this one is pretty short, pretty easy, and it does have a bit of line choice, but for the most part, it doesn't. Right? I mean, in multiplayer, pretty much everybody's gonna be doing the same thing. You know, that quad before the finish line, it's just a wide open, you don't really have to hit a corner, you don't have to have any skill to try to do it, you know? And I'm not saying if a track is easy, it isn't good. That's not the point. And again, I like all the Supercross tracks, okay? So I'm not saying that these are terrible tracks. They're just my least favorite. There isn't a ton of line choice, and there really isn't anything to separate players from each other on this track besides just your, you know, can you hit a corner better? Can you not crash in the whoops? You know, stuff, the normal stuff. There isn't any rhythm sections or big lines or difficult lines to go for that would separate the players. So they're good tracks, okay? Minneapolis, Arlington, calm down. They're good tracks. They're just my two least favorite. The two tracks that I don't do a bunch of laps on. I don't play a bunch, right? Okay, switching over to the motocross tracks, this is St. Cloud. Now this track, it isn't a terrible track. It's actually fine. It has decent elevation. It has, it's pretty rough, and it flows okay, but it doesn't do any of that better than most of the other tracks in the game, right? So the track is just a little bit on the boring side to play, I guess. And, you know, just because it has elevation and roughness doesn't make it a great track. If this track was in MX versus ATV All Out, this would be a great track. It would be an amazing track. But since the tracks this time around have been very, 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 very good, in my opinion, all the Supercross tracks are fun, and most the outdoor tracks are really good. This track just doesn't feel special, and it's not terrible to play. It just isn't that fun, in my opinion. All of the other tracks in the game, or similar tracks to this, do what this track does better. So, not awful, just overall, this would probably be my least favorite track in the game. Both indoor and outdoor, this is my least favorite track to play. I don't dread it, okay? Same as Supercross, I don't dread it, but I'm not going to sit here and burn off, 20 laps trying to get the best lap I possibly can, or hope that this track comes up in multiplayer. So it's just my least favorite track overall. And we have our final track of the day. This would be my second least favorite track in the game. As far as the outdoor tracks go, this is Pine Hill. Now, this is the easy version, the short version, and it would be the first track you play in the game. Now, the cool thing about this track, it is a bit more realistic, and there isn't anything crazy about it. It has some decent ruts, it has some roughness, it has some elevation to it, but this track, this was the first track you play, and they stick you on a stock 125, so it probably is for the best that this is the track you play at the beginning, because that stock 125 isn't that fun to use, right? So this track would be okay, and I feel like it's a decent track for a beginning track, trying to learn the game, but I don't want to come back to it. After I played the game, learned the game, this isn't a track I want to come back to for a challenge, or to try and get a fast lap, or to have races in multiplayer or whatever. It's a really easy, simple, kind of boring track. But I get why they did it this way, and it's fine to have this kind of a track in the game, especially since it's basically teaching you how to play the game at the beginning, right? Because it's the first, I believe it's the first career track you play. So yeah, let me know in the comments what your guys' list would be for indoor and outdoor. But overall, the straight rhythm and trails I feel like are probably the worst quote tracks in the game. This is my list. I'd be curious to see what your guys' is, but you guys and girls are absolutely amazing. Thank you so much for the support on the channel lately. It really does mean a lot. And until the next video, take it easy.